What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? AJ Good here at the House of Masks, where we unbox and review cool stuff almost every single day. And in today's video, we have something that tens of you have been waiting on. In today's video, we have the full Gwar collection update. Now, it has been quite a long time since my last full Gwar collection update. We have added a lot of very cool pieces, but I didn't want to shoot one prematurely like I normally do, if you know what I mean, and then end up with a bunch of other cool stuff within weeks or just a couple months of that full collection video. So I got to a point where I figured it was pretty safe, and I'm not really waiting on anything else crazy for the Gwar collection, and I just thought that right now would be the perfect time to shoot this. So we are going to be going over the entirety of my Gwar collection, taking a look at pretty much everything in depth, giving you guys the cool stories behind each piece, and just giving you a general update video. So without wasting any more time, let's go ahead and jump into it. Alright guys, so we are going to start down on this side of the Gwar collection in the little Sleazy corner, which is probably one of the biggest differences from the last Gwar collection update video that we did. Ever since I moved the collection into this building, the Sleazy corner has been down on the opposite end, but we just kinda outgrew that side, not only because we've acquired more Sleazy stuff, but because we've acquired so much Don stuff in general, such as this Bozo Destructo mask that is behind me, one of the coolest pieces in my collection for sure, definitely one of my favorites, and one of the oldest. That thing was used for a very, very long time. It was Don's second Bozo Destructo mask because the first one was stolen and no one has really seen it since, and he ended up using this since before I was born up until like last year when they did the, well fuck, I guess it wasn't last year. God, time is just moving so fast. I still thought it was like 2021 there for a second. Anyways, this was used in the Scumdogs reunion video, the 30th anniversary of Scumdogs, where they did the big Scumdogs reunion DVD and live stream and all that. That was used in it, and that was one of the last times that Don wore that mask, aside for doing the send-off of that mask for my channel, and then it ended up here. Very, very cool piece, and definitely one of my most expensive Gwar pieces, and I wanted to make sure that I gave Don a good price on that because I knew that he was pretty sentimentally attached to the Bozo Destructo character, and to that mask in specific, because he's had other Bozo masks since then that just didn't work out. He didn't like the way they felt, they ended up rotting and falling apart very easily, but he kept that one around for so long because he just really liked it. So aside from the Bozo piece, we have also got a newer Sleazy suit, and this one was used in the last decade or so. He ended up using this at a lot of conventions and a few concerts, such as the drive-in. When COVID was at an all-time high and Gwar still wanted to do live shows, they did that drive-in, and this is the suit that Sleazy wore for that. And we've got the entire thing aside for the belt buckle, which I didn't even think about when me and Don worked this deal out. I did manage to get the shoes from him, but we both totally forgot about the belt buckle. So Don, I'm coming for the belt buckle, buddy. Be ready to take my money or whatever, you know? But yeah, we've got the old stuff. We've got the 95 Sleazy suit. We have got the original chains that he's been wearing since 91 or 92. I know that when I bought these, it said 95 to present, but I know that that's just because he added some chains around 95. There are definitely some chains in there that I've screen matched from the early 90s, 91, 92-ish. So we've got the original Sleazy chains there, super stoked on those. We've got my Sleazy Blaster, which was actually the first piece that I ever bought from Don, and that definitely opened the gateway for a lot of new stuff to enter my collection. Easily one of my all-time favorite stage-used Gwar pieces. That is definitely like a top 5 for me. We've got both of my Sleazy hair pieces. This is the Scumdogs of the Universe hair piece. Super, super important and very, very cool piece for my collection. Easily one of my favorites. And then we've got my later Don piece. I don't know exactly when this was introduced, but I know that it was definitely around in 2009, and he ended up wearing this until 2019 when it was sold to a buddy of mine who later ended up selling it to me So this was a secondhand purchase as well as this, but everything else that you see in the Sleazy corner was purchased directly from Sleazy himself. And what's funny is I think I had both of these before I started buying stuff from Don. So I already had both of the Sleazy hair pieces before I even started working deals with Don. I think. I could be wrong about that. I have so much stuff now that it's hard for me to remember the timeline on certain things. Moving down, we have a Pit Official Matron mask as well as some stage-used Matron and Sexecutioner gloves. These were originally Matron gloves that ended up being used by Chuck during a Gwarbecue years and years later. So we've got a double there, and I thought that they looked good with the Matron helmet, so I went ahead and put them on some hands, and I've got them on display with the Matron mask, and I just think that that looks nice. A nice little ode to Matt McGuire, who is just the greatest dude in the history of Gwar. He's so nice, and he does so much for the band, and I feel like he definitely is like an underrated entity in Gwar. So shout out to Matt. Up above, we have got a stage and screen-used Scrota Moon arm. And it's more of like a muscle mass, muscle fiber type underarm thing, because essentially what would happen on stage or on screen is Scrota Moon would have these giant like Popeye arms, and the band would end up ripping them off, and then these would be under there, and you get your spew and all that stuff. I don't even remember how I ended up getting that. I don't remember who I bought that off of. I don't remember how I got it. It may have been Fred Grigg in one of the Gwar groups, but I honestly can't remember. But it's definitely a weird and unique piece. But yeah, I have a piece of the most infamously known and most hated Gwar character of all time, the worst Gwar character of all time, which is crazy because we still have Bone Snapper, and Bone Snapper fucking sucks. Scrota Moon arm, ladies and gentlemen. Moving right on down the line, here we have my 2014 Tony Abbott head, and this is a very strange piece because I don't really give a shit about Tony Abbott. I'm not Australian, doesn't really mean much to me. However, this is one of Dave/Oderus's last victims. So this came to be because I was working a deal with another Gwar collector who I'd pretty much bought out at this point, and it was for a Bill Clinton severed head. Well, midway through the deal, one of our buddies who was also in the Gwarzium group was like, hey, I'd really like that. Is there any chance that I could buy that and you could just get the Tony Abbott head? And that guy had collected for a lot longer than me, and he had also sold me a lot of cool stuff over the years, so out of respect, I was like, yeah man, go ahead. I will take the Tony Abbott head. So I ended up with the Tony Abbott head, and I realized, you know, it is a pretty unique piece anyways, and it is stage used, so obviously it's cool, but it's also one of Oderus's last victims before Oderus passed away, so I feel like that in itself is just enough to make me want to have that in my collection. I could have definitely sold that or traded it off throughout the years, but the little sentiment of having that be one of Oderus's last victims has always just made me think like, yeah, I should probably keep that. So I don't see it going anywhere. Tony Abbott's head, I mean, it is what it is. At what point have I gotten to where I'm like debating getting rid of something stage-used Gwar? That doesn't even make sense. The stage-used Gwar stuff is not leaving my collection. It's all very special no matter how I talk about it in this video, I swear. Up here above, we've got two Oderus masks. We have a 2006 Beyond Hell mask. This was created by my buddy Lonnie and gifted to me after I sent him a gift. I promise it wasn't a trade, it just happened to work out that way. I felt like he deserved these pieces and he felt like saying thanks, and I'm not going to turn these down, that's for sure. So we've got a Lonnie made 2006 Beyond Hell Oderus with the scalp rip, and then we also had a Lonnie made Violence Has Arrived Oderus, and this could double as a War Party Oderus. It would just need to be a little darker and dirtier from the face paint and spew and weathering that I got over the years. Easily two of my favorite pieces in the collection, which is crazy because they're not even stage used, let alone pit official. They're just two fan-made replicas, but they're so good, and they are Oderus pieces that they just stand out, and I absolutely love them. So shout out to Lonnie, incredible work, definitely two of my favorite pieces to look at in the collection. Coming back down, we have one of the most controversial, weird, grotesque, gross pieces in my collection. This is the stage-used Princess Diana piece, and I've got her a little censored right now because she does have these parts and they are exposed and they are out there and they are vulgar. But a lot of kids come through the House of Masks, their parents want to bring them in because they just love horror, they love heavy metal music or whatever. But I don't really feel like they should walk in here and just see this giant gaping monstrosity and have that be like their first experience with a vagina, and then their fucking mom and dad has to tell them what that is, and it's just a mess. So I threw a bra and a set of panties on her, which is weird because it's not a set of panties. Why do we say that? a pair of jeans. It's just one jeans. It's not a pair of panties. It's just one panties. Anyways, she's got underwear on, essentially. And yeah, like I said, a real vulgar piece. This was one of the first Gwar pieces that I was ever like hesitant to buy. I just felt really uncomfortable owning it. I was like, man, I don't want this, like, essentially a Gwar-made sex doll that was used for sex acts on stage. And I just have to see this thing, and I just felt weird about it. Like, it's shocking and controversial, and I love that about Gwar, but owning it was a different story for some reason. But Gwar history is Gwar history. I had to have it, ended up buying it, and you know what? I don't feel so weird about it anymore. You have sex with this thing a couple times and everything just works itself out, you know? Coming on down, we've got some other stuff. We have a stage-used 90s Mojo. We've got the full set of Preacher boards along with one of these that I purchased at a show a few years back. And by a few years back, I mean, damn, it had to be close to probably 10 years now, which is crazy. Again, time just doesn't make sense anymore. But down here below on the shelf, we have one of, if not my favorite Gwar piece of all time. Now this isn't stage used, but it is real mold, so this came straight from the pit by the artists that make Gwar's actual pieces. These are my War Party Jaws, and again, easily my all-time favorite Gwar look. Ballsack the Jaws of Death is one of the greatest creature designs of all time, and I just feel like everything about the War Party look was perfect. He still had rounded jaws, but they started to get that more like chromatic look that they would get during Beyond Hell when they went pointy. And I don't know, I truly don't know what it is about that specific look, but I just love everything about it. So I got on a waiting list for this. I believe that this is the only replica set out there of the War Party Jaws, and the only other copy that exists is in the Gwar bar right now, and those are Dirk's actual stage-used Jaws. Man, what I would give for those. But yeah, dude, I waited a long time, I paid a lot of money, and it was all worth it in the end, because the second that I opened that box, it was like I was a kid on every Christmas morning that a kid could ever have. It was perfect and beautiful, and I just love these things. So easily one of my top 5 pieces in the collection. Definitely my top 5 non-stage used. Like, this would be the #1 for sure. Love these things. Cannot talk about them enough, but I will move on for the sake of making this video shorter, because God knows it's going to be a long one.
That's what she said.
As we continue on down the line, we have a couple of Oderus pieces here for this nice little Oderus setup. So basically, what is going on here is the main star of the show is these gauntlets, oddly enough. I know that those might be the most boring looking pieces here in this setup, but these are actually real mold, and they were made by Dave with a possible slave pit apprentice who ended up gifting them to me after Dave passed away. He said that Dave was kind of trying to work him into the slave pit, and they ended up making these together. So they're pretty special pieces, honestly, and one of the first pieces I ever had. Like I said, it was after Dave passed away, so it was sometime in 2014 or maybe even early 2015 that I was gifted these, and they've just been around forever. I decided to match them up with a pair of hands that I ended up finding Halloween hunting before we even did Halloween hunting. I'm talking like, I don't know, 2012, 2013 maybe. I found these at a thrift store. And I just thought that they looked like Oderus's hands, so I always had those around as well. Ended up pairing them up, and I got this mask shortly before Dave passed away. It was really weird timing how this one came into my life too, because I got the mask and it seemed like I had it for a few weeks, and then Dave goes and dies. Now, these masks are pretty interesting. They are pit-approved, semi-official, mass-produced Gwar masks. So when I say that, basically what was happening was there was a smaller company that was trying to get these into mass production for the slave pit. Obviously the slave pit real deal stuff has a lot going on. It needs to be able to endure a lot of Gwar carnage, a lot of stage use stuff, and that is true even for the slave pit stuff that they are selling to collectors to keep in their collection. They make them exactly like the ones that you see on stage, which takes a lot of work. And it's all handmade. So there was another company that was coming in and trying to work with the slave pit on getting some official mass-produced Gwar stuff out into the world, and I just don't think that it ever really happened. So all that's out there really are the handmade artist copy ones, and that means that these are pretty rare. Not only are they pretty rare, but they're really good for what they were. I mean, the beard isn't the greatest, but this sculpt itself for like a War Party era Oderus is super, super good. I've always loved these things. It would have been super rad to see those hit the shelves, and who knows, maybe like at a Spirit Halloween right now, we'd be looking at a Jizmak and an Oderus mask in mass production. Pretty unfortunate that it didn't happen, but I was lucky enough to snag one of these, and now they go for buku money amongst collectors. So this nice little Oderus setup has always been around, and even though it's not as legit as a lot of the other stuff in my collection, I can't help but love it for what it is. There's a lot of history and nostalgia and sentimentality in all of these pieces, so the little Oderus setup is definitely special. Alright, next up we have a real mold Sexecutioner mask straight from Chuck Varga himself, meaning that not only is this real mold in the same sense that this comes directly out of the real mold that the Sexecutioner is using for his masks that you see on stage, but it's done by Chuck himself, the guy that portrays the Sexecutioner, so that's pretty cool. Nothing super crazy. These are pretty common in the collector circuit because they are readily available from Chuck. He can make you one to buy right now, and if you guys want to go grab one, I would suggest it. They are a good price. It is a real mold item straight from the person who portrays the Sexecutioner, and these guys aren't going to be around forever, so it's only going to get more valuable and more special as time goes on, and that brings us into the small little Sexecutioner area. So we've got this piece first, but then we've got two super special pieces. I will start with the one up top. This one is a strange one, and it took us a little bit to figure out exactly what was going on, but with the help of Chuck himself, I was able to kind of figure out what this was. So this was sold to me extremely cheap under the pretext that it was a stage-used piece. However, the guy that sold it to me didn't know how it was a stage-used piece. He didn't know when it was used. He didn't have any footage or photos or anything like that, but I talked to Chuck, and it is a stage-used Sexecutioner mask. It just wasn't used by Chuck. And I know what you're thinking. How was it not used by Chuck, but it's still a stage-used piece? Well, this is actually known as the imposter mask. This was used by Hunter Jackson when the Sexecutioner left. Gwar had a bit where Techno Destructo was dressed up and impersonating the Sexecutioner, and during the set, he would end up taking all the Sexecutioner gear off to reveal himself as Techno Destructo. And this was the mask that was used. Now, the only difference between how it sits right now and how it looked on stage is that this mouthpiece was removed, and yes, this mouthpiece is removable. I've got it stuck in there right now for display, and I'm not going to take it out for this video, but on stage, when Techno had this mask on, this mouthpiece wasn't there, and his beard was just hanging out. I don't really know why they did that, but maybe it was just so he could sing, or maybe it was just so it was a little bit more apparent that he was an imposter. Because if you really look close at him, he doesn't have the Sexecutioner's kind of like arm guards and wrist guards and hand things. He's just got his own thing going on, and really the only likeness is a couple Sexecutioner pieces such as the mask. But yeah, this is a very interesting piece for that, and I think it's my only stage-used Hunter piece, oddly enough. My only stage-used Techno piece is a Sexecutioner mask. That's pretty weird, right? Below it, we have another crazy stage-used piece, and wow, I mean, every time I really think about this, I'm just kind of blown away. We have got the Sexecutioner's second mask, I believe. So he did have a mask before this, no idea what happened to that. But here we have a mask from 1989. This thing is, again, older than I am. And man, I can't believe that it's in the state that it's in right now. It just looks like a relic, because when I got that thing, it looked like someone had just like thrown up on a carpet and then cut that piece of carpet out and mailed it to me. It was flat, it was crackly, it was gross, it was not in the shape of a Sexecutioner mask, and you could barely identify it. But I was able to work with it a little bit. I got it onto a head for preservation, and now it should look like that until I die. Like, I don't see a reason for this thing to change. Everything that has rotted is essentially petrified onto the foam that the mask was hard sculpted on. So I don't think that it'll be changing in my lifetime, and whoever gets it after I die, hopefully they take care of it as well. and this thing can just live on forever, as a Gwar piece should. Easily one of my grails, and taking that out and showing it to Chuck when I was shooting a video with Chuck a few weeks ago was a very, very cool moment. So, continuing, we have my first ever Gwar stage used decap head. This is a Mitt Romney head. Nothing too crazy. Again, this isn't like a standout character in the Gwar lore, it's just another politician, but it's super special to me, not only because it's stage used, of course, that goes without saying, but because this was my first Gwar decap head. This was the first one I ever had the chance to own, so obviously I hopped all over it. It wasn't cheap, but it was well worth it, and not only is it my first Gwar decap head, but I actually got to see this one in use. By the time they were using this head, I was already going to Gwar shows, so I got to see Mitt Romney get decapitated, and years later we were reunited, and this thing was added to my collection, where it should be. Alright, so now we are in one of my favorite portions of my Gwar collection, the Jizmak section, and before we talk about these Jizmak pieces, I want to touch on the stuff that is surrounding it. Obviously you can see all sorts of little framed items, everything from Dave's memorial pamphlets, to ticket stubs, to signed comic books. We've got stage-used Gwar sticks, drum heads, we've got COAs from the slave pit itself, just a bunch of little random stuff. But the other main piece that's here with the Jizmaks has got to be this stage-used Nazi skinhead decap head, and this is one of the later heads, so this one was used like 2014, 2015, right up until, I don't know, 2019 when they sold it. I can't be too sure when the first time that we saw this thing was, but I can tell you that we definitely saw it on stage with Sleazy and Volvatron and Blothar during Slaughterama. I don't know if this was ever on stage with Oderus or not, but it is what it is. It's got the old school crude style that Gwar used to have on their decap heads, and you will see one from the early 90s that kind of lines up with this, so I'm glad that they kept that. But yeah, new school, Nazi skinhead decap. I don't know anybody else with a Nazi skinhead decap in their collection, so that's pretty cool. But now we've got to talk about the main pieces here. We've got these stage-used Jizmak pieces, and I believe that I have all of the stage-used Jizmak stuff, so if it's in circulation, it's in my collection, and we'll go in order. We will talk about the first piece here, which is the full War Party Jizmak setup. That means that I have every piece to the full War Party suit, everything from the mask to the feet, and that goes with the shoulder pads and the chest plate, the belt, the shoes, the shin guards, and the wrist guards. Hey guys, let's pretend that the camera didn't die and it's not like 6 hours later. Anyways, where was I? So, I was talking about the War Party Jizmak setup, and I had mentioned that I have all of the accessories that go with this, from the feet to the wrist guards, but I also have all of the accessories that go with these two as well, and that is because they are all the same. Jizmak recycled all of the wrist guard stuff, the feet, everything from the 90s Jizmak. He wore it through Violence Has Arrived and then wore it through War Party. So all of that stuff was worn for 10 years through 3 different looks for Jizmak, which is pretty cool. So as we talk about these pieces, just keep in mind that I have the full setup for all of them, and you guys will see that a little bit later. They're just slightly out of frame down here on the shelves underneath. But yes, the War Party Jizmak. War Party is my all-time favorite Gwar record, so this one is special not only for that reason, but because I am a drummer. I play the drums. Clearly, I identify with Jizmak as a character and as a musician. So, War Party Jizmak, super special, obviously. Moving on to Violence Has Arrived, Jizmak mask and chest plate. Now this one is also incredibly special. Not because Violence Has Arrived is my favorite Gwar album, because were you not listening? I just said War Party is my favorite Gwar album. But this one is super special because this was my first ever stage-used Gwar piece, and man, what a life-changing moment. I remember it like it was yesterday. My buddy Nick, who I had been begging to sell me some stage-used Gwar stuff for like 10 years, finally messages me and he says, "Hey, I think I've got something for you, but it's going to cost this amount of money, no less, take it or leave it, and it is what it is. You don't get to pick, it is this item, so let me know." And I was like, yo, I got to get this no matter what, and I had a budget. I said I'm not going to go over $2,000, but I went over $2,000 because I thought that this was going to be a once-in-a-lifetime thing, And I don't regret that at all. I got a super sick piece from a super sick era of a super sick character that I love from Gwar, and this piece itself opened the door for me to get everything else that you see in this collection, whether it made me more legit and it made the Gwar members recognize me so that I could buy off of them, or it putting me into the Gwarzeum with the other Gwarzeum guys who I bought a lot of this stuff off of. So, the Violence Has Arrived Jizmak is definitely a super special piece in the collection. It's my first piece, man. It's my baby. I love this thing. And that brings us to the 90s Jizmak, which I'm going to change camera angles for because I'm stoked about this one too. Yeah, I don't know. I just want to move the camera. Alright, the 90s Jizmak. Easily the favorite Jizmak in my collection, simply based on the aesthetics and also because he wore the shit out of this thing. When I say that all of this accumulated over 10 years, I mean that this one was literally worn for almost 10 years on its own. He wore this from 92 until 2001 when Violence Has Arrived came out. And that's pretty fucking cool, man. And honestly, this is still my favorite style Jizmak aside for Scumdogs. So, this would be my second favorite style. But the Scumdogs was like a hard sculpted piece out of foam, and it's hard to tell if that thing even exists anymore. But this one kept the same general look. It just got slightly more jackalish, slightly more doggish. I don't really know what they were going for with the Scumdogs mask. But the reason that it is my favorite is because you can't really tell what you're looking at. It's just some sort of weird growth with teeth coming out and these weird big eyebrow things and stuff. I don't know. Super weird, but I love that thing. Anyways, this one doesn't look too far off. It is definitely a natural progression. And, I mean, think about the things that this mask saw. I just can't even fathom that. Like, the 90s of Gwar, the entire 90s of Gwar, this thing was there. This thing is on so many album covers and promo shots and live footage. I just love this thing. When I got the chance to own this, I really couldn't believe it, and I was well into stage-used Gwar collecting at that point, and this one still just absolutely blew me away. So big ups to the 90s stage-used Gwar Jizmak. This thing is one of my babies. Easily a top 5 piece for me in my collection, no doubt about it. And that is the Jizmak collection. Man, I would love to add that Scumdogs mask to this collection. I hope that it's out there somewhere and that I can grab that thing. On the other side, we have some more goodies. This is the 90s decap head that I was telling you guys about earlier. This is one of the most recent additions to my collection, and this thing is strange. It looks like some sort of fish. But I love this old school, crude, nasty, gross looking Gwar. This is my favorite style of Gwar, and I don't know, there's just something special about that shit. And the fact that this one has Gwar carved into the forehead makes it even cooler to me for some reason. On top of the stage-used decap head, we have a Slave Pit official Pustulus mask. Definitely a standout piece in my collection. Again, one of the most recent additions to my collection, and I got that for a really good price actually. I got it secondhand off of my friend. But it is Pit official. It is a real Slave Pit piece. This was made out of the same molds as Pustulus's mask by the artists in Gwar. So this thing is special, and like I said, it just stands out. This blue color was one of the first blues that we got to see in Gwar. Now everything is blue or purple, which is kind of aggravating, but when it was just Pustulus, he definitely stood out on stage, and there's a lot of earthy toned stuff in my collection, so having this blue down on this end and having Sleazy's purple suit accent that other end really ties everything together, and those pieces just stand out on their own for sure. This little guy here, which is normally tucked in right here, is a stage-used Gwar eyeball pop prop, and I believe that this was made by Brocky, and it was also signed by Brocky, and this is weird. This was just an additional piece that was thrown in with this decap head by my buddy Chris Martin, and he told me that he bought these off of Jameson, and apparently Jameson was gifted these by Brocky before Jameson even portrayed Beefcake. So he wasn't even in the band, he was just friends with Brocky, and Brocky gave him these eyeballs as gifts. Now, I did gift one of the other eyeballs that I had to a friend of mine who definitely deserves it, and I decided to keep this one because the signatures on it aren't as pretty. and signatures just don't really mean much to me, so I figured if I was going to keep one, I could keep the one with the messier and more faded signatures, and I would be just fine with that. So that goes there, and we are on to some more special pieces. Oh my god, who would have guessed? Now, I'm gonna go with the bass guitar first. Let's go with this. So this is my first and only real stage-used Gwar instrument. If you don't count the drumsticks and you don't count the drum heads, this bass guitar is my only true stage-used Gwar piece. Now, the difference between my stage-used Gwar picks and my stage-used drum heads and stage-used sticks is that they feel really incomplete. Like a drum head goes on to the drums, and a drumstick just hits the drums, and a guitar pick just strums the strings. This thing is a full-on Gwar piece. This was one of Jameson's basses, Beefcake's basses, obviously. And the story with this is pretty cool. I got it really cheap off of another collector who was just looking to get out of Gwar stuff, and I bought it because the price was awesome. Stage-used Gwar equipment really isn't my forte. Like I said, this is my first stage-used Gwar instrument, so I was kind of out of my element, but I knew the price that I was getting it for was a really solid price. So I went ahead and picked it up. We got it here at the House of Masks. I made a video on it, obviously, and in that video I expressed that I don't really care for signatures, especially if they're not received by me. So if I'm not the one that is taking the item to get signed and experiencing that experience on my own, I'm just not really crazy about signatures. Well, Beefcake saw that video, Jameson, and he was like, yo, I'm gonna be in Columbus in like 2 weeks. Would you like to meet up and I can re-sign the bass for you? And I was like, hell yeah. So I got to go up to Columbus. I got to hang out with Jameson for a little bit. He played the bass. He showed me some unreleased Gwar stuff. We had many laughs and it was a good time. And now the guitar is made out to the House of Masks from Beefcake with a far better signature than it had before. Originally, it was signed like shit and it was personalized to someone else who got it before the guy that I bought it off of, so it was like wiped off with an alcohol wipe and it just looked terrible. Regardless, we got it taken care of, and now I have an even cooler story that accompanies this stage-used bass. Next up, we have the Jacques Gusto head, and this is another piece that I never expected. You know, I knew the collector that had it. I asked him about buying it probably 9 months ago, and he was like, nah, that's my baby. And then randomly one day he hit me up and he was like, hey, I think I'm gonna sell this thing. Do you want it? He ended up selling it to me cheaper than he bought it for, and now we have another piece of Gwar history. This is a pretty well-known Gwar decap because it is the first victim that you see in the Dawn of the Day of the Night of the Penguins video. So I remember seeing that when I was little, and I've watched that DVD 1.5 million times, and now I have the head of Jacques Gusto here in my collection. It's in really good shape, especially for how old it is. It's in a lot better shape than some of my other Gwar decaps, and I need to get a case for it, but I also need to figure out what I'm doing because there's just so much space that's taken over here that I don't know how much longer we're going to be able to keep this stuff in this area. I think we're either going to have to put new shelves below, maybe new shelves up above, get rid of some of the stuff on the wall. I don't know, but we are actively running out of room. Now, the last thing that you guys see is the most special thing over here for sure, and you're probably wondering why is it so special, or you're a big Gwar fan and you're not wondering why it's so special, or you're a big fan of the House of Masks and you're not wondering why it's so special, because Gwar fans are going to know this thing immediately, and House of Masks fans are going to remember this video because I hyped it up and it was quite the video. What we have here is, stop texting me, what we have here is him. Him is Dave Brockie's creation from start to finish, and I mean that. He sculpted this thing, he painted this thing, and then he used the shit out of this thing. He used this for tons of Have You Seen Me's in the early 90s. He used this for different press. This thing was pretty much Dave Brockie, Oderus Urungus's right-hand man, and if Oderus was doing something, there was a good chance that him was with him. For instance, in this photo right here is him. This is Dave Brockie's baby, literally. This thing is on the same level as owning a real Oderus mask, if you ask me. Maybe even more special because there are far less hymns than there are Oderus masks. So this one is a big deal for sure, and I've got to get him kind of fixed up. There are certain things on this that are just absolutely falling apart and destroyed, and that's why he really hasn't moved since I got him here, because I want to dedicate a fair amount of time and effort into salvaging some of these areas. I'm obviously not going to be redoing the whole piece because I don't want to devalue it to a certain extent, but I do want to make sure that it's just going to stay the way that it is at least and not continue to rot and die and just look like shit. So once we get him patched up and taken care of, I'm going to be building a custom coffin case with like a clear glass front, because this thing used to be carried out on the stage in a coffin and they would take the coffin lid off and Dave would grab him out of there, and I just think that would make a really cool display and kind of commemorate exactly what this prop was in Gwar. So that is the deal with him. We also have a little replica him back here that my buddy Gavin made. Me and Gavin are both pretty obsessed with the him character and the lore, and Gavin was nice enough to make me a replica long before I ever got a hold of the real deal. So that is like the middle main tier level of my Gwar collection. Now we have stuff on the walls that you guys haven't seen. We also have an upper shelf, and then we have some shelves down here, all with Filth the Shelves items. And I'm going to quickly run you guys through all of that stuff as well. It won't be nearly as in-depth as what we just did for all this stuff, because my real legit main stuff is on this main shelf, and the rest is just real merch or smaller items that aren't necessarily as important or large as most of the items that you guys just saw. So let's go back down to the other end. We will start our way down and show you guys the top shelf and the bottom shelves. All right? All right, we're going handheld now, which means you won't have to stare at my stupid fucking face, but we are also going to pretty much speedrun all of this stuff. So if there is something in particular that I don't explain well enough, just know that if you go through my videos and you find the Gwar stuff, that there is most likely a video on everything here. So we will start down here. I'm actually going to start with this giant axe. Now this is Sexecutioner's Sexcalibur, and this was actually gifted to me by the Sexecutioner just a few weeks ago when I went to New York and shot the interview with Chuck, and he said that this thing is heavily used and abused and was in the middle of repair, but it is what it is. I'm going to leave it like that because I think that's fucking awesome. There's a lot of character with this thing, and I mean, look at that. It's a gift from the Sexecutioner. I have a Sexcalibur in my collection now, so super sick. Obviously, this isn't where it's going to be. I just haven't gotten around to finding a place for it anywhere because, again, there's just so much stuff, man. We're just, like, really outgrowing this. So, the Sexcalibur. Up here, we've got a few various items. We've got a Gwar picture disc, and I'm not sure if that's all America Must Be Destroyed, or if it's literally just Gwar that's on there. It's probably just Gwar that's on there, but this was in a Mailbox Monday not too long ago, and I have that. Oh yeah, it's Gwar and the road behind. So the case is behind the Sexcalibur. I just wanted to show off the disc itself a little bit better, so I put it up on here. We've also got the new Duoverse of Absurdity. I just said like O-B, not of, like O-F. I said O-B. Anyways, man, I'm just getting dumber as the night gets later. Anyways, Duoverse of Absurdity, the new Gwar graphic novel. We also have a stage-used Matron piece here. This would go somewhere on the arm, I think probably above the glove or something like that. I don't know. I need to go to sleep. This has taken me way too long. God. All right, get it together, AJ. Let's move on over. We've got two stage-used drum heads from the 30th anniversary Scumdogs tour. I bought these directly off of Jizmak, and my buddy Andrew sent them my way. I'm going to take these out, and I'm going to replace the backgrounds because these are actually blood red heads that look really, really cool. But with the dark background and the fact that they're like under these shelves, they're pretty dark. You really can't tell what's going on here. So I'm going to replace the background. I'll probably do like a white cutout, or maybe even find a way to like run some lights up through the back of the shadow boxes or something just to accent those, because they really are a super neat piece. And it was one of the first times I'd ever seen blood red heads, and I think that they fit his drum setup really well, especially with like the white drums and like blood running out as if these are like barrels of blood that he's beating on. So these are really cool pieces, and I think that they need to be shown off a little better. And this one didn't even stay where it was supposed to. You can see some of the hot glue residue that's in there, but next to them, this would also benefit from some lights over here. This is a bottle of stage-used spew, and I guess it's not stage-used spew because it's obviously in this bottle, but You can see the blue there. This is leftover spew from one of the giant drums that they use to pump the spew out through the cannons, through the decap heads and the body parts and whatnot. My buddy Ryan Pervola sent me that. Super, super cool piece, even if it's in a vodka bottle. I'd probably show it off like that a little bit better because we don't support alcohol around these parts. But yeah, that's just another super cool item. Moving on down, we've got Gwar versus Time and a couple empty. Nope, that one's not empty. That one's empty, obviously. We got some like Gwar beer stuff here. I don't know. I don't know anything about alcohol, but I know that it's got Gwar on it, so I figured I'll stick it in the collection. Those were gifts. Why not, you know? Moving on down, we've got the new Gwar figures. And then we've got some of the old Don-made hyper-real figures for the 20th anniversary of Gwar. We've also got some little random stuff that has yet to find a place. This is a signed Pete Lee Flatus photo, and I need to get a frame for that, but I haven't yet. We've also got a bunch of other stuff. We've got like promo photos. We've got promo photos. We've got promo photos. There's a bunch of stuff here. There's scripts. There's everything else. We've got this shirt that I got when I pre-ordered the new record. Not sure why I didn't put it in my closet with my other Gwar shirts, but it's here. We've got more stuff that needs frames down here on the bottom. Different Gwar posters, tour flyers, you name it. We've got Gwar stuff. What's this? Some Gwar art. Oderus there. We've got magazines and magazines and magazines and magazines. We've got my VHS collection. I still need the mail-out tapes or the mail-in tapes or whatever you want to call those. A Surprising Burst, The Next Mutation, TVD, stuff like that. I've got pretty much everything else that I can think of anyways, but I don't have any of the mail-in tapes that were done by Hunter Jackson. So I'd like to get those to finish out this little setup here. It does kind of look neat, but there's this giant gap right here. So moving on down again, we've got Let There Be Gwar, which I was lucky enough to get before the prices on that skyrocketed. I think I paid $60 for that. They go for hundreds of dollars now. We've got an out-of-place Gwar Orgasmageddon comic. The only reason it's down here is because that was the first of the Orgasmageddon comics that I got. The rest of them are up here by this banner, which you guys will see later. We've also got this cool box set, which has all kinds of cool stuff on it. I'm probably going to order another loose copy of this so that I can keep this one with this setup, and so that I can add another one to my cassette collection, which is right here. And again, gonna have to find a new way to do this because the next time that I get a cassette, you're not gonna be able to see it. Like, where am I gonna put it? I don't know, I'm out of room. We got all my DVDs right here. We got some extra stuff that I've gotten from Sleazy over the years. We've got a signed Beyond Hell. We've got a signed by Bozo and Sleazy Electile Dysfunction 08 DVD. We have this shirt that Creature sent me when they sent me those boards. Shout out to Creature. Thank you very much. We've got more little odds and ends, keychains, Butt of God matchbook. We've got stickers from various artists. Here are the Jizmak items I told you guys about earlier. We got some stage-used feet. We got some stage-used arm guards. Some are in good condition, others are not. And I think that they look cool down here, so they stay down here, obviously. Now, this is a cool piece, and I need to get in there and fuck with this setup because it's kind of looking weird right now. And also, there is still a sticker on the case that I never took off. That is a stage-used bag of Gwar blood that was given to a fan after a show. They just didn't end up using that burst bag, and they gave it away. And, I mean, how cool is that? Another example of stage-used Gwar blood. I've got the spew down there in that bottle, and I've got Gwar blood right here, and everything looks good in a glass case. Like, look at that. That's super sick. And then there's just other stuff, man. I've got a Sleazy signed Beyond Hell DVD. We've got the vape juice. We've got the bobbleheads in their box. We have a tiki. People go crazy for these tiki mugs. I don't really understand that, but I've got that one there. The Gwar Anthology box set, and all of my CDs. And that pretty much does it for the bottom shelves of Filth the Shelves. So I'll give you guys a nice view right there, all the way down to the Sexcalibur. And then back, I guess we can count this too. This is the Beefcake Razorback #2 base case that this thing comes in. It's not staying there, obviously. It's just here because, right out of frame, my AC is being worked on, and normally it sits directly in front of the AC, but they've got this all taken apart. So, Filth the Shelves 2022 has been good to this bottom section in particular, and now we will move up to the upper section. Are you sweaty? All right, now we are on the final stretch, the upper shelf, which is not yet fully decorated. It's really only just got picture frames and stuff on it for right now, but we will start down here with these beautiful bloody underwear, and you're probably thinking, why do you have bloody underwear? And these are the underwear that I was wearing when Saw Borg murdered me, which you can see in that photo right there, or you can see on my channel in the video that I shot at the slave pit. Those are the blood bags that were used to explode my neck, and for some reason, most of the blood went down to my underwear and to Matt McGuire's underwear. And there's actually a funny clip after he does it where he's like, that went straight into my pants. Did I die all right?
Most of it went down into my pants.
So we move on from those to just a plethora of different things. There is the disc with no name picture disc. We've got various signed things, some from the box set, some Orgasmageddon comics. We've got my newly finished full line of Slave Pit funnies, 1 through 7 there. Pretty cool. And then, what's this? We've got a ball sack, the Jaws of Death on the upper deck. Yeah, that's right. Who cares if it's just a replica? It looks sick up there. I mean, am I right? It's a fan-made replica. It isn't the most accurate thing ever, but it's definitely not the worst I've ever seen. It was good enough for my collection, so I'm cool with that. And right next to that is the latest acquiry to the collection. Do I use the word acquiry right? I don't know if I'm saying that. That is the latest addition to the collection. That is a Slave Pit official, real mold, Lust in Space, Oderus Urungus mask. And I guess you can see it all right from where I'm at, right? Yeah, I don't know. Pretty cool. Definitely didn't see a real mold Oderus in my future because the people that have them normally do not let them go. But I got lucky and I was able to grab that one secondhand, and there it is. I can't wait for Palefest because I'm going to make Lonnie, the guy that did both of these Oderuses, cut the hair down on that one because good lord, there's a lot of hair on that mask. And then we've just got some more little Gwar stuff. We've got some more Orgasmageddons up there. We've got a nice framed catalog from the 90s that features my 90s head that's down there. And it's right in the middle of that, but I guess you can't see it too much. And then, I don't know, you guys saw the stuff. We got a Gwar, we got some signed sleazy stuff. Here's a receipt from the Gwar bar when I went down there to visit. We've got this thing. There's stuff, man. Like, you would walk past this a couple of times and still not see everything. But for the most part, that is my Gwar collection as of right now. All right, guys, there it is. The long-awaited and highly anticipated by at least 4 people out there full Gwar collection video update. Or full Gwar collection update video. I think that sounds better. The full Gwar collection update video in its entirety. I tried to be as in-depth as possible and provide as many examples of these things being used on stage, but if for some reason there is something that I didn't touch on enough, and you guys want to see it explained and explored a little further, pretty much everything that you saw here has its own video on my channel, so if you just go back far enough, or if you search more specifically, you will find every single item on the channel. And I give much better examples in the videos that I dedicate to those individual pieces. But that is it in a nutshell, man. That is my pride and joy. I have a vast collection of a lot of different things, but the Gwar collection and the Gwar section here at the House of Masks is definitely my baby. Like, this is my pride and joy for sure. No contest. I love my Gwar stuff. So yeah, thank you guys very, very much for watching. I really, really hope that you have enjoyed it. If you did, please consider leaving me a like and maybe even a comment. It definitely helps the channel out. I can even make the comment part easy for you. Let me know down below what your favorite piece in my Gwar collection is. looking forward to hearing your answers. Again, thank you guys very much for watching, and again, I really do hope that you have enjoyed it. This was definitely a challenging video, and it forced me to step out of the comfort zone that I've created the last few months on the channel, because I haven't shot an in-depth video like this in a while. It went straight from just regular unboxings and reviews to like these crazy videos where I'm traveling and doing interviews and shooting with other people. So this one was a big one, and I definitely put some effort into it. So again, thank you guys for watching. I'm done talking now. My fucking lungs literally hurt because I've said so many words in such a short time. I'm gonna go not talk for the rest of the night. One last plug before we go. Remember, PaleFest, October 8th, here at the House of Masks. We're gonna have an open house. You guys can come see all of this stuff up close and personal. I'm even going to have some Gwar stuff set out. That way you guys can touch it, take pictures with it, pretend you're killing people, whatever you want to do. And Sleazy P Martini is going to be here in the flesh. He's going to be hanging out, taking pictures with you guys, selling stuff. It's going to be a good time. There are a million other non-Gwar related things going on. You guys should check it out. October 8th, Chillicothe, Ohio, PaleFest at the House of Masks. We will see you guys there.